Good evening.
Are we on live?
There are people.
Good evening and welcome to this workshop on anthropology. My name is Karthik Godavarthi and this is my colleague Mr. Vinay Krishna. Both of us are the faculties in anthropology here at Vajiram Ravi. And welcome to all the online students too who are joining us on YouTube. The purpose of this workshop is to help you aspirants to make an informed choice about the optionals. And you have a huge list in front of you. Some of you are confused. You're on that particular threshold of choosing the right optional, which is very critical and strategic in this particular exam. So what we will do today is to help you understand what is the nature of this discipline called anthropology, and we'll give you a brief overview about the subject and also help you understand how this discipline actually behaves as an optional in this exam, and also our strategy and how we handle the classes, what we expect from you and what you can expect from us. And any questions you have, we'll be answering for you. So what we'll do is I'll first take a part of the workshop where I'll be dealing with certain aspects of the syllabus. And Mr. Vinoy, I think some of you may know him, is also a faculty in science and technology. And he will be handling another component of the syllabus, which I'll help you understand. And then we will answer any questions you have. Okay?
Sure,
Okay.
so you
So
please
I'll,
continue. I'll join you.
yeah, I'll let you know. I've been a faculty in anthropology for 33 years. I'm an alumnus from University of Hyderabad. I passed out in anthropology in 1993, and I've been teaching since then and mentoring students. I'm also a professional anthropologist working in the domain of urban governance. I worked in the domains of water and sanitation. I worked with corporates. And I did my field research amongst the tribes of Paderu in Visakhapatnam district of Andhra Pradesh. It's a multi-tribal area bordering Orissa. And subsequently, about a decade ago, I worked amongst the Kodavas of Coorg and made a visual ethnography, visual documentation of the Kodava culture, which was actually sponsored by the Films Division of India subsequently. And as I told you, I think most of you were not born since I've been teaching anthropology and now teaching the children of my past students. Anthropology, how many of you know about this discipline? You know what it is? Have you heard about it outside the domain of civil services? Well, that's a problem. You know, there's anthropology everywhere, but not very many people realize that they are actually exploring this discipline. But actually, it touches almost every aspect of our life. In fact, maybe in about a short span of about 20 days to 1 month, you will start seeing anthropology everywhere in your lives. That's how close this discipline is to us. Any idea what does it deal with?
It talks about the culture, the way we dress.
The way we dress, talks about our culture. Okay. Anything else? Human aspects. Okay. No. Surprising. Okay. Anthropology, let me actually explain it to you in very simple terms because I'm not taking a class on anthropology per se, but only giving you an introduction to anthropology. It's a Greek word, anthropos. You know what it means? It means the humans. And logos and logia, it's there in almost every science, sociology. right? Psychology, logy, logos is a Greek word which means science, reasoning, logic, right? The opposite of logos is mythos or myth. And when you translate this into a definition, anthropology is the science of humanity. And it's a science of humanity. There are many other disciplines, right? Psychology deals with humans, human behavior. Sociology deals with society, social aspects like social relationships and whatnot, right? Even life sciences. Human biology deals with the human anatomy, morphology, whatnot. Human geography also deals with humans, their distribution, populations, etc. Human ecology deals with the interaction between the humans and their environment. Then why do we need a separate discipline? The problem lies in the fact that none of these disciplines is looking at the human being in totality. In fact, anthropology is one of the youngest disciplines in the family of social sciences. Its history is probably about 200 years old. There are many other disciplines older than anthropology. But the need for anthropology was felt even in Aristotelian writings. We can find the mention of anthropology. In fact, this term anthropology is attributed to him, even though it's not substantiated. But this is considered to be a holistic discipline, a discipline that looks at the human species in its totality. We as human species, right? I use the word human species. Do you know our biological name? Homo sapiens. Do you know the meaning of sapiens? No? Okay. Sapiens means wise, and it translates to wisdom, right? And Homo is actually the genus to which we belong to in the animal kingdom. And when you take that term, you know what the wisdom is? The wisdom is all about our culture, our behavior, our ability to invent things, our ability to communicate using complex language, and our culture in its totality. That includes our behavior, our knowledge. And we learn things through our experience, package it, and give it to the next generation. And this is the only species on Earth that depends on this learned knowledge for its survival. But we are not just cultural beings, we are also animals at the end of the day. Without these hands, without this ability to hold objects the way we do, there's something called the precision grip and the power grip. Without this brain, right, none of this is possible. So there is a biological aspect to the human being, and there is a behavioral aspect to the human being. You have all the biological sciences dealing with the biological dimensions of man, medicine, anatomy, biology. Then you have social sciences and behavioral sciences dealing with certain aspects of human behavior. But none of these disciplines is linking up the human biology with culture. So we require a biocultural study of man. And that biocultural study of human beings is what is called as anthropology. Anthropos is human, logos is science. Translated into English, it becomes the science of humanity. And when we say science of humanity, that means there's virtually nothing about us that we don't study. I keep telling my students, we study everything that we touch, and we study everything that touches us. And there's virtually nothing we don't study under the sky. And when I'm saying this, I'm not exaggerating, because anthropology is defined as one of the most comprehensive disciplines. And there are hundreds of specializations. Like me, I've specialized in a domain called medical anthropology. And my area of research is to understand what kind of cultural, organizational, and behavioral factors that are preventing, some of the indigenous cultures of the world from adopting modern medicine. And how health is interpreted by the cultures of the world. What is considered a disease in one system of medicine is considered to be a symptom of health in other culture. So we look at culture in all its perspective in all its dimensions, and that holistic study is anthropology. Essentially, let me put it in a very simple way. It's a scientific study that explores three very important questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? And why do we behave the way we do? And there are many other disciplines that have emerged to answer these very questions, but none of them is answering them in a comprehensive and a scientific way. Even our religions answer this question, right? Where did we come from? And who are we? And those are philosophies. And we are trying to answer these questions through science, through empirical evidence. And that's why we trace the evolution of man biologically and also the evolution of man culturally. We study the past, the present, and the future. So that's anthropology in a nutshell. It is a study of the human nature from biological and behavioral perspectives. And when we say human behavior, we have a social behavior where we meet, greet, live in families, organize ourselves into society, right? And then we form political organizations, govern ourselves, and end up having social relationships, right? And then we also have a cultural dimension or the cultural behavior. Our language, our religion, our norms, our values, and all those aspects together constitute the behavioral nature. And this biocultural or biobehavioral study is what anthropology is. And even though it is one of the most comprehensive disciplines that deals with man with hundreds of specializations, the whole of anthropology is broadly organized into 4 branches. These are considered to be the 4 pillars of anthropological study. One is socio-cultural anthropology, which studies the behavioral nature of man, what I just told you, the social and cultural aspects. The second one is physical anthropology, which deals with the biological aspects of man, because we are also a physical organism, right? But we are not like bag of bones and blood. We are not like other animals. We stopped living like animals millions of years ago. You know, we crossed the threshold of being a man to human. When I use the word man, it's gender neutral. Okay, it's biological I'm using. So we cross that threshold the day when we have developed what is called as culture. So we need to look at the physical aspects of man too, the human species too. And the third, once upon a time, this was a branch of socio-cultural, but later on, because it required specialized methods to study and specialized training, this ended up emerging into a specialized branch called linguistic anthropology. You just have one small chapter. And this is where we study human communication, how we communicate. We communicate using a very complex system called language, isn't it? And this kind of a communication is unparalleled in the animal kingdom. Plants also communicate. Microbes communicate. They use chemicals, they use physical touch probably. Some of the animals also use gestures like the way we do, right? But our communication is much beyond that. We are able to formulate ideas like I am formulating ideas. I'm trying to verbalize them and form a sentence which is grammatically correct so that you and I are on the same page, and trying to see your responses if you are reflecting on what I am saying and making amendments to how I am speaking as I'm talking to you. All these are the part of communication, something we take so much for granted. So that is one aspect, unparalleled in the animal kingdom, and that required a specialized study, and that emerged into linguistic anthropology. And since I told you we study human beings from evolutionary perspective, the biological evolution is studied under physical anthropology. under a specialization called paleoanthropology. But cultural evolution is studied under archaeological anthropology. You have only one chapter for this also in paper 1 and another chapter in paper 2. I'm sure you must be studying this in your history. Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, same thing. Human evolution doesn't change whether you're studying it under history or anthropology. That's a fact. So these are the 4 broad pillars of anthropology per se. And you have one chapter here, one chapter here, and multiple chapters. So I'll quickly go through the syllabus. So I will be dealing with all the socio-cultural anthropology in paper 1 and paper 2. That's about almost 80% of your syllabus. And then you have physical anthropology that will be dealt by Mr. Vinay Krishna. Right? One chapter of archaeology linguistics is a part of socio-cultural anthropology. So let me show you the overview. And Mr. Praveen Dikshit, you must have met him. He will be handling archaeology, which is ancient Indian history, both in Indian context and the world context. This is how your paper is organized. Give me a second. Let me import this file. Hope it's readable to the online students. So, like any other paper, all the optionals are structured around the same pattern. There's no difference. Probably, I think mathematics and other specialized subjects may have a different pattern, which I'm not sure. But you have 2 papers, paper 1 and paper 2, for our academic convenience. So that, we will be navigating through the syllabus in a very structured way, a methodology that we have meticulously developed over decades. There's so many redundancies, overlaps, duplications in the syllabus. So we follow our own order. I always strongly believe there's a way in which anthropology should be learned. There's a way in which anthropology should be taught. And that gives you a right momentum and also a proper route to navigate through the various chapters. And each chapter is going to lay the foundation for the subsequent chapter. So there is always a kind of a logical, organic connectivity between all the chapters. And paper 1 is divided into physical and socio-cultural, but in socio-cultural you have one chapter of linguistic and another chapter of archaeology. I'll show you. And physical anthropology is where you will be dealing with the biocultural aspects. Physical anthropology is not strictly biology. It's integrating biology with culture. Like, for example, how does something like caste endogamy, we marry within our own caste. Or in many cultures, they marry within their own larger kin groups, as we call them. What are the genetic consequences of it? There are some populations like island communities in the world where, there are very few people living, but they have been inbreeding for hundreds of generations. And these are primarily because of cultural, behavioral, and geographical factors. How does that interact with our biology? So strictly, physical anthropology is not biology. If it has to be biology, then it might as well be dealt by biologists. Why should we replicate the effort they have already put in? But here we are not reinventing the wheel. We are only adding anthropological dimensions to the already existing biological concepts, so that our understanding of the species is very different from the way other species is studied and understood. So that's how the paper 1 is organized. Paper 2 is entirely about India. So we will study about Indian anthropology, and that's how the papers, that's how we categorize them, right? And this is your paper 1. The socio-cultural anthropology. Physical anthropology, Mr. Vinay will come and explain to you the topics. So like most of the other subjects, we start off with the basics. Because I just asked you people what is anthropology, and I'm not surprised if you cannot answer it, because if at all many of you people have heard about it, it's probably because of the civil services. But as I told you, as I promised to you, you will see anthropology everywhere. It's just that you didn't package it as anthropology, but you have been studying it for a very long time. You're reading about it in the newspapers every single day. You're watching it in the movies every time you go, and everywhere, right? But we start off with the introduction to anthropology, which is essentially, where we study the definitions. Like I just gave you one definition. Encyclopedia Britannica defines it as a discipline devoted to a discourse on human nature. So what is human nature? Why should we have a separate discipline? What does it entails to study humans? Can we use the same methods used by sociology or psychology or economics or political science? Why or why not? And what are the branches? And since much of what we study also is done by or dealt by other disciplines, we study our relationship with other disciplines. So that's the first chapter, which is your foundation, which is where you will understand anthropology. But that chapter is something you will better understand after the syllabus is over. Because in retrospective effect, when you understand the scope of anthropology, the branches of anthropology, and the way it deals with the human species, we are practically demonstrating it in every chapter. So that's one. And then we go into the basic concepts of society and culture, a foundational topic, extremely important for GS too. You have a huge social sciences component in GS. Most of you, I'm sure, are from engineering and life sciences background. The last time you probably studied biology or social sciences was in 10th or maximum 12th. Where most of you take a plunge into general studies without understanding the difference between society and culture, or a community and an association. What do we mean by the word social, first of all? What do we mean by political, economic? So these are the kind of basic terms. The alphabets of social sciences is what we learn in this chapter. This is going to be a foundational topic because, as I told you, it kind of grounds you to understand even your general studies syllabus, general studies topics, where, we go with the assumption that you know the basics. Gone were the days when civil services is a graduate level exam. It's postgraduate honors level exam. And I'm sure if you look at the question papers, the changing patterns, and trust me, I've been in this domain for dog's years now. I've seen this exam evolve in front of my eyes. At least 5 to 6 times I've witnessed the iterations in the syllabi and the patterns. So it's very important to get your basics right. And probably there's no other discipline that is going to give you that exposure to the basic ideas of social sciences except in anthropology. This topic is made, I would say, with the intention of introducing you to the basic concepts that we are going to explore in the rest of the syllabus. It's incidental that they are going to help you in GS2. I'm going to show you the interface between Anthro and GS. There's one chapter where you have language, communication, origin of language. When did we start speaking? What were those first words we could have spoken? And was it the apes? Was it the human? Do apes communicate? If they do, in what way? And there's something called non-verbal communication. I'm using gestures, I'm using pauses, I'm using modulations. And I think almost about 75 to 80% of human communication is non-verbal. 70% safe side, research says about 65. So you must have started judging the people the moment they walk in, the way they look, the way they dress, the way they stand, the way they sit. And what I'm saying verbally constitutes about 35 to 40% of the meaning. Much of the meaning that you're interpreting is based on not what I say, but how I am saying it. I'm using a visual aid to support what I am saying verbally. So that's also a non-verbal communication, technically speaking. This movement of hands, they are not deliberate. It's happening unconsciously. But the fact that they are happening is that it's an important component of our communication. And you know that gestures we use are also culture specific. You know, when I say did you understand, you may nod. But in Turkey and Bulgaria, nod means a no. And a shake means a yes. Just imagine. And we may find it very resisting when we say, yes, 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 I understood everything. You try it, it's very difficult. But it's a learned behavior. Just like the way we learned our mother tongue. These are all complicated stuff that it may sound complicated, but they're very basic to our existence. We don't consider ourselves to be so sophisticated, but trust me, you know, you are one of the most knowledgeable species that takes so many things for granted, but it's all happening because of this brain that you have. And it's processing information faster than any chip even NVIDIA can make, right? And then you will have something called social institutions. Social institutions are organized ways of doing things. When we say we meet at 5:30, we will have this agenda, or we are rule bound, you know, and everywhere except on the roads, of course. But we follow rules in every aspect of our life. Those set of norms, rules, regulations are called institutions in social sciences. Family, marriage, kinship, economic organizations, political systems, they all come under religion, they all come under social institutions. And anthropology, especially sociocultural anthropology, is defined as a comparative study of social institutions. Marriage, for example. There are some cultures where there's monogamy, in some cultures polygamy, in some cultures cousin marriage, in some other cultures there is something called bilateral cousins. You know, you have cousins on father's side, cousins on mother's side. I come from Hyderabad, so in down south in Telugu states, they marry maternal uncle also. You know, the niece marries a maternal uncle. And like this, there are varieties. I mean, this world is full of diversity. So here we study the cultural aspects. When we go to physical, we look at the genetic and the biological aspects. So this is going to help you there, and that is going to help you here. And then we study the approaches to study of culture. That's the most important aspect of study. As one of you said, anthropology is a study of culture. Yes, indeed it is. Difference between sociology and social anthropology is we look at society as an aspect of culture. The difference between economics and economic anthropology is that we look at economics also as an aspect of culture. Politics is an aspect of culture. Medicine and medical anthropology. Medicine is culture. We start naturopathy, doesn't work. Homeopathy doesn't work. Allopathy doesn't work. Tirupati. You know, the hierarchy. Religion, medicine, God are all interconnected. You know, in India we say Vaidyo Narayano Hari, right? We equate the doctors with God. The reason is because these are the only two domains that deal with life and death and everything in between. Well, religion deals with life after death also. So in many cultures, medicine is not a separate system. It's a part and parcel of magic and religion. See, we wear kalavas, we wear rakshas, we wear taweez. That's for protection. It's like, you know, prevention. This is a supernatural vaccination. And that's how we interpret medicine, we interpret culture, we interpret religion, we interpret health and disease. And the whole thing is woven into, you know, the cultures of the people. And then we study demography. You know what is demography? Demography. Demography, the word is dem, which means population. Democracy is ruled by the people, right? Demography is writing about populations. It's a study of populations. So this is where we study, we bring in anthropological insights into fertility, mortality. You know, there is something called as demographic dividend. India is talking about youth, 28.6 or something is a median age. You know, Prime Minister Modi goes and tells the world, come and make in India, because we have the most youthful population. When South Korea, Japan, And many other developed countries are, suffering from lack of manpower. So is it a dividend? Is it a liability? What factors are responsible for population growth? What are the implications? This year there was a question, what are the challenges India is likely to face by 2050? If the population grows the way it has. Now, today we are reversing the trend, but that's also a concern. Like South Indian states, like Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister announced incentives for people to have more children. Because South Indian states have crossed the demographic threshold and they went into sub-replacement level 2.1, something you discuss in GS also. But you don't bring in the dimensions like religion plays a role on fertility. Culture plays a role on fertility. Poverty and fertility are related. People are poor not because they have more children. People have more children because they are poor. Because more children means more earning hands, and more earning hands means more incomes. Fertility, poverty are related. So we go into India's population policy, critically evaluate it, see where we went wrong, then we make our suggestions. And there are some theories and concepts in demography that we also look at. And then try to examine population from a holistic perspective. Biological, cultural, social, religious, psychological factors also play a role. In India, we don't have social security in old age. So many couple would like to have children so that there can also be support for them in the older ages. So these are all the various dimensions we'll explore that you won't explore even in general studies. They're in fact unknown, non-existent in many subjects. Anthropologists have invested in it. And in fact, in India, there were many anthropologists who have started working on population since the 1950s and 60s, when we realized that controlling population is important. The world thought development is the best contraceptive, but India had a policy where contraceptive was considered to be a very important method of development. But were we right? Were we wrong? And stuff like that is explored here. And then that's common for paper 1 and paper 2. In fact, we deal paper 1 and paper 2 together because the concepts will be discussed here and India will be used as a case study. And then we study ecological anthropology, small chapter. Fish can only live in water, right? Reptiles in dry areas. Xerophytes, plants like cacti, live only in dry areas. A polar bear cannot come out of the tundra, right? There are certain types of species that live only in the rainforest and where the humidity is about near 100%. Look at the human being. We are there in the polar regions. The Eskimo, the Inuit as we call them. Eskimo is a racist word actually. Inuit. We live in the hottest of the deserts, the coldest of the mountains, right? Even we have our own Himalayan people. We live in tropical areas, semi-tropics, arid areas. And we built our own ecosystems. We call them cities. No other species lives in such different, varied, diverse environments. Ecosystems, we call them. How is it possible? We answer only one question in this chapter: how humans adapt. Ecology is what? The study of an organism, the relationship of an organism with its environment. And we explore that. And then you have human geography in general studies, right? It's going to help you there. In fact, there are different terminologies that are used: adaptation, adaptability, acclimatization. These are English words, but they have specific meanings in ecology. 10 markers, 5 markers in GS appear about what is the difference between adaptability and adaptation, or acclimatization and adaptation, right? And then we also look at epidemiology. It's a small branch of medical anthropology. What is epidemiology? I think the word became popular, unfortunately, during COVID, but epidemiology is a very old science. It is the study of the distribution of diseases, epidemics, endemics, pandemics. And recently, the world witnessed a pandemic, right? Our living generation has seen that pandemic. There was a Spanish flu before. So what are diseases? How diseases spread? What are the types of diseases that afflict us? And we also incidentally have another credit to our species. And you know what that is? We have the longest list of infectious diseases in the animal kingdom. No other animal has so many. घर में कुत्ता है, so give it some vaccinations, over, done deal. But we perpetually live next to pharmacies. Now we also have online deliveries. And none of the organisms, there's something wrong in the way humans are adapting to organisms. And that's why probably they're afflicting us. There's virtually nothing in this world that cannot kill us, you know. Everything virtually kills us. And we think we are the most sophisticated species on earth. We are very vulnerable. We are only surviving thanks to doctors, medical science, diagnostics, pharmacology, and the R&D that happens in medicines. COVID. We did not have any strategy to prevent COVID from spreading except behavioral changes. We were locked inside the houses. We stopped meeting strangers. Namaskar became the most popular greeting in the world. Since then, many people stopped giving shake hands. I think that Italy Prime Minister still doesn't give shake hand to anyone. Behavior, we are using our social behavior and cultural behavior to prevent diseases. But the same social behavior and cultural behavior is also responsible for the spread of diseases. How do the indigenous people protect themselves? They don't have access to modern science, technology, vaccines. Amazon when COVID entered, that was the most scariest time for anthropologists, especially medical anthropologists, because their immune system is different from us. You know, there are some areas in Andaman Nicobar you can't enter. Even the president of India cannot enter. The Sentinelese, for example. Because you and I go there, we carry the germs with us, and their immune systems, they're called the naive. They're very naive immune systems. That means they don't have that antibodies that you and I have, because they never were exposed to those germs. So it's like death sentence. That's why we don't go there. Likewise in other parts of the world. So that is where medical and epidemiological anthropology helps in, because culture and medicine, I told you, are two sides of the same coin, right? And then we will look at research methods and how we do research in anthropology. That's one of the last chapters. In fact, this along with study of approaches to study of culture, we study after paper 2, because we will do a retrospective study and take examples from all these chapters to understand how the research, because we'll be using those concepts as examples while we are discussing these topics, and how anthropological field work is done. There's nothing like armchair anthropology. You have to do field work. It's a field-oriented science. You have to work on the ground with the people. And we have our own methods, unique methods like participant observation, right? Field ethnography, we call it. We write about cultures of the world, and we live in the culture, become the part of the culture, and try to understand the culture the way the people understand it. You want to understand India, you have to become an Indian to know what is India. Likewise, you want to understand the Thodas of Nilgiris, become one of them to see what it means to be a Thoda, what it means to be a particular culture, whether it's rural, urban, or tribal societies. We don't differentiate, we study everyone. And then you have basic concepts in prehistoric archaeology. I'm sure you must have heard about dating techniques, not the dating that, not the Golchakkar, Karol Bagh types. I'm talking about archaeological dating, right? Radiometric dating, right? And archaeological dating is also something has been in news for a very long time, right? And in India, a lot of cases are pending about archaeological sites like Ram Mandir, for example. Archaeological evidence had to be given regarding the Ayodhya Babri Masjid case. Likewise, there is another case pending in front of the Supreme Court. So what are the methods that archaeologists use? Archaeology, many people don't know that it's a branch of anthropology, but it became a very sophisticated science. So it's now given as a separate degree in some of the universities, including India. But the basics of anthropology remain the same. And then that's paper 1. Paper 2, and if I knock off the heading, somebody may think this is actually general studies paper. Indian prehistory. That's paper 1, archaeology ka extension, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Indus Valley civilization. When, where, how, why, what about Indian culture, its roots. And then we go into the demographic profile that we deal along with paper 1. What is India's population structure, growth, an evaluation of India's population policy. And we also have this perspective, the future of India's population, like I told you about a question that came last year. What are the causes and consequences of India's population? What is the age structure? What are its implications? India only recently boasted of a positive female sex ratio. Sex ratio in India is female sex ratio. Number of females to 1,000 males. We were pathetically low compared to global averages. That's primarily because of gender bias, female infanticide. Today you have radiology, right? Ultrasound and all, female feticide. And there are some districts in India, even today, where the sex ratio is below 800. And what are the implications? Why is this happening? Is it cultural, religious? Do females really have a disadvantage when it comes to life, health, culture, status, society? What we call normally as gender. Sex is biological. Gender is a social construct. The way we perceive our attitudes towards, the female sex. What are the issues involved in it? Age, youth, we call it. Is it a demographic dividend, or can it be a liability? Are we ready to house them? Are we ready to employ them? All of you are in an age where you are not yet contributing to the nation, but the nation should empower you so that you can contribute to the country. And you're all in your what we call as prime reproductive age. So when you get married, I'm sure most of you will, and at least have one child, just imagine the potential increase of the population in the future. Is India ready? Do we have infrastructure? Do we have colleges, schools, jobs, entertainment? Can your energies be channelized? So is it a dividend or a liability? What are the social, economic, cultural, political consequences? The age structure can also influence politics of the nation. Today, the world is talking about Gen Z. All these are the topics and concepts that are extremely relevant to us. And essentially, anthropology is, we are packaging our everyday life and our everyday experiences as academic lessons. We don't go out to search for examples. We have enough examples of ourselves. We are studying us. It's a study of the human by the human. You are not looking at how cockroaches fall in love with each other or how lizards marry. We talk about ourselves. We are not bothered about the evolution of the invertebrates. We are only bothered about one species. That is us. And we are packaging it into, as I told you, our everyday lives into academic lessons. And that's what anthropology is. You know how anthropology has been defined earlier? A gossip that revolves around man. You know what is a gossip, right? Nowadays we are doing it on Instagram and all that. Right? But anthropology is considered to be a gossip that revolves around man, and an anthropologist is a gossiper who talks about himself. And that's what we are going to do. Right? You're going to pay money for gossip. But it's a very structured and a scientific gossip with empirical evidence. Right? This is not that kind of puss kind of a talk where there is no, it's totally based on conjectures and imagination. Right? And then look at this third chapter, traditional Indian society. I think you have it as a part of ancient India, social issues, Varna, caste. We study caste, at least about 25 to 30% of paper 2 is about caste, and in all its avatars: caste and economy, caste and gender, caste and politics, caste and inequality. SCs, scheduled castes, where did they evolve from? What are the issues, challenges, constitutional safeguards, violations? OBC, the C in OBC is not caste, it's class. But somehow it emerged into a caste in India. And those issues, what did the Mandal Commission say? Before Mandal Commission, there's something called Kalekar Committee, the first backward classes commission, and how it has been interpreted and how it has been evolving. And then you have the Dalit politics, then Mandal politics, and then came something called as EWS, right? Economically weaker sections. What did the National Commission since beginning say? Backward classes commissions, National Commission for Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribe. What is the Constitution of India saying? But we are not only looking at the politico-economic dimensions, but also at the same time, we are looking at the cultural and social evolution of these concepts in India. We go into historical times, right from the time of Varna, Rigveda, all the way to contemporary India, and your topic ends with the future of caste. And check last year's general studies paper. You have a question that caste is static and fluid. And you have a topic here in Indian caste system, continuity and change in caste in India and the future of caste in India. We have anthropologists. Do you know Dr. Ambedkar has a degree in anthropology? In fact, is one of his theories about the origin of the caste, which was presented in an anthropological conference in University of Columbia, New York. He was invited by an anthropologist, Alexander Goldenweiser, and Dr. Ambedkar was awarded a PhD for that subject. He is a man with multiple talents, and he provided an anthropological insight into the origin and evolution of the caste system and how it has evolved in India and how it can be annihilated. 3 years ago, there was a question on what are Dr. Ambedkar's ideas on origin of caste. Many people know about his work in the domain of constitution, social welfare, and other aspects of it, social justice. That is his other essay. It's called Annihilation of Caste. But there is an essay that he has written on the origin of caste. I'll come to your questions shortly. Yeah? Give me a minute. I'll just finish the syllabus and I'll answer your queries, online students. And then rural anthropology, we call it, India's villages. India is known Gramavasini Bharati. The number of villages in India is unprecedented in any nation. And despite so much of urbanization, a majority of Indians still live in rural areas. Majority are still dependent on agriculture and allied services. Even though primary sector's contribution to GDP has been coming down, the number of people dependent on agriculture hasn't come down. India's farming sector is still very sensitive. And any small change in the farm policy, the farm distress will be highlighted. Our stock markets are influenced by rural areas. You and I, when we go and vote, it doesn't matter, but it's rural people votes that return the government since independence. And no CM, PM or DM has survived in India when they ignored the rural population. They are the heart and soul of India. We won't have our dinner tonight and breakfast tomorrow without rural contribution. And rural areas became an important aspect of study in anthropology, especially after independence, 1950s, when India started the Rural Reconstruction Program. Pandit Nehru himself personally invited many anthropologists to study the rural areas because wahan there is jati, there is class system, zamindari ek zamane mein, jagirdari systems. And that rural area, caste, class, gender, all the three are present. And in that kind of a social context, we wanted to reconstruct our villages. Did we achieve it or did we fail? As a big question. So what is the role villages play in India? India's politics, economics and social structure is what we explore. Panchayat Raj, 73rd Amendment. Did we achieve the goals? How is it working? What are the social changes that are expected of it? How is it working today? And what are the suggestions we can make? And then we have a lot of social and cultural impact of globalization, industrialization, right, on rural areas. And don't think that globalization is something that is happening now. It's been happening from time immemorial, right? Colonization of India by Britishers, French, Dutch, and many other people is also globalization. Indus Valley time also, our coins were there in Rome, Roman coins were there here. You must have read about lapis lazuli, that blue raw material that was used for jewelry. But the pace of globalization has increased of late. What are the implications? How are the rural areas taking it? How are the tribal people taking it? And in what way is it connecting us to the rest of the world? In paper 1 in economic anthropology, we study impact of globalization on indigenous people of the world. In paper 2, specifically on Indian culture, villages, tribes, and everybody else. And then there are so many things you study in social issues. These are anthropological concepts. I mean, Srinivas. I'm a student of his student. And Professor Srinivas is an anthropologist from Karnataka. He studied a village called Rampura in Coorg district, where I did my subsequent study, Kodavas. He studied Rampura, and that's where he emerged the concept of Sanskritization, Westernization. He also came out with a concept called secularization, modernization of Professor Yogendra Singh, great and little traditions, role of panchayat, role of media in bringing social change. Media is not only the conventional media, today you also have social media. We study them. These are extremely important for your general studies, general essay, and even the personality test. And then we study the minorities. How many types of minorities the Constitution of India recognizes? 2, religious and linguistic. And religious and linguistic minorities, what are their problems, social, economic, political? What is the Constitution saying? What are the various commissions? We have Sachar Commission, Ranganath Mishra. Right now, one of the cases, Supreme Court has issued a notice. There is a committee also constituted by the Union of India, whether the Dalit converts require SC reservation or not. Contentious issue right now. And those are all the kind of issues we'll be discussing. Why is it? What are the debates on either side of the camp? There are some who say yes, they deserve SC reservation. Dalits are SC essentially. There were 4 varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. The untouchables, the so-called untouchables, belong to the 5th varna, which emerged in the later post-Vedic age. And what is their status? What is the problem? How did they evolve? What are the challenges? Many converted. See, you can't, if you want to escape caste, you have to escape Hinduism. So many people converted to Christianity, some to Islam, Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism. But those people under Sikhism and Buddhism, there were 2 amendments and they are treated as Hindu for the purpose of the constitution. But those who got converted to Christianity, Islam, do not qualify to be called Dalits. And are they facing any kind of issues once they converted? And do they deserve it? The Ranganath Mishra Commission was there that actually advised this. What are the issues that are there? What did the Supreme Court of India say? What is the current status of that? What is the committee that is constituted? What are the terms of reference? All these are the issues we study. And we don't study the way you study in GS. We go into the anthropological depth of it. Right from the historical times, we will be picking up. Once you have the knowledge about that subculture, that subgroup, then you will have a better understanding of why those recommendations were made and why you think they should be either accepted or not. And we are not going to pass any judgments, but we are going to academically discuss, objectively discuss these issues, threadbare. And then, of course, we study, in addition to SCs, we study OBCs. I'm sure you must have heard about denotified communities. They were once upon a time called the criminal tribes. Britishers, buggers, they passed an act called the Criminal Tribes Act. And many of the people belonging to the whole tribe have been added to that group called criminal tribe. So a child who is born is automatically listed as a criminal. And those people suffered. Even the transgenders, hijras as we call them, they were also criminalized under the Criminal Tribes Act. And after independence, we repealed that act, Criminal Tribes Act. They are denotified from that list. Schedule bole to list. That's why scheduled caste. Any caste mentioned in that list is scheduled caste. Scheduled tribe. Any tribe mentioned in that list is called scheduled tribe. And somebody, the President of India notifies somebody to be either included or excluded. Likewise, when you remove somebody from the list, they become denotified. So you are denotifying the list. That's how they became denotified communities. Kabhi you must have seen people doing jugglery, acrobats on the road, right? Aapke ghar ke paas shayad aaye honge, they do this grinding stones, metallurgy. They're all once upon a time hunter-gatherers, nomadic tribes as we call them. Some of them are SCs, some of them are STs, some of them are OBC, some of them are not even notified. And recently, Anthropological Survey of India, the current director, Dr. B.V. Sharma, is my guru. I did my research under him. He's my guru. And they have recently given a list of tribes who should be categorized as denotified. Anthropological Survey of India is a national body, the only government body operating at a policy level and recommendations and research. They have recently also done a research on the genomic ancestry of India. This whole debate about Aryan, Dravidian, it's all non-empirical, And then we study the constitutional safeguards. Scheduled tribes, we study them a lot. In fact, some people, I'm surprised I didn't get the definition. Usually when I ask amateurs like you, what is anthropology? Some of them say it's a study of tribes. Or somebody will say it's a study of bones and skeletons. Well, both of them are right, but that's not the only thing we study. We study a lot of tribes, and much of our research happened in tribes is because no other social science studied them. And the present day tribes are our own living ancestors. That's how we began. The origins of human culture are unknown. Social institutions ka origin, evolution is unknown. And when we study the tribes, we are looking into our own past. And over a period of time, because we studied them extensively, we ended up becoming an advocacy for them, protecting the indigenous rights, helping negotiate with the governments in trying to mainstream them and taking care of their problems, because no other social science understood the tribal issues the way we do. Literacy, health, nutrition. There's something called land alienation. India has been officially declared Naxal free yesterday by the Home Minister. That whole area is a tribal area. And left-wing terrorism, these are the people who are caught in the crossfire. And development in many of the tribal areas is still horrible. I don't know whether you've been to, some of you may belong to tribal communities, but some of the tribal communities' situation socially, economically is very bad. So we study them and look at the constitutional safeguards. Almost 20 to 25% of paper 2 is tribes, scheduled tribes, their problems, and the whole concept of the evolution, land alienation, displacement without rehabilitation, education, unemployment, there's something called indebtedness, poverty, and many of those issues. And then, of course, we also look at issues to do with ethnicity. Ethnic revolts are common. India is probably home to the largest number of cultures and subcultures in the world. And much of the diversity in America, North America, is because of migrations. India's diversity is organic. We all belong to this land. This diversity is made in India, right? And this diversity is what we celebrate in India. And in this kind of a diversity also is a great asset we have. At the same time, it is indeed incredible India, but there are times when groups may come into conflict. They may be at loggerheads. So there are problems, regionalism, ethnic revolts. There's tribal ethnicity, Northeast especially. Then there is communalism, religious communalism, caste communalism. There's so many. We study communalism from its origins and the forms of communalism. Hindu-Muslim, Hindu-Christian, Hindu-Sikh, Muslim-Christian, caste communalism. There is linguism, language politics is being played in India. Even river disputes, Kaveri, Krishna, Godavari, river sharing, can create a friction between people of the state. Even a small problem, smallest of acrimony can create a big issue. These are internal security issues. And national integration. Is it possible? Did it happen? What are the things that we need to reckon? See, a person who forgets his past is doomed to repeat it. George Santayana, the 20th century American philosopher, Spanish philosopher, I think, he said that. And we need to look at everything from a historical point of view to know how we can, prepare for the future. That's why everything we study in anthropology is from a historical perspective. Whether it's human, if you want to ask anthropology, what is the future of humans? You need to know how we came here so that we can know the journey ahead. And that is how we take the past, connect it to the present, take the past and present and connect it to the future. And that study of the human species, biologically, culturally, and socially, across time, across space, is anthropology. And that is what is being packed into your syllabus. Your chota, small topics. But it is indeed a very popular subject. And every year, you have a number of students clearing. It has been like that for a very long time. Exam has become competitive. The number of aspirants who are taking it has also increased, right? The number of optionals has increased. Choices are there, but anthropology has been a stable choice, primarily because of a simple reason that we are not looking at something alien. It's not impossible to, it's not difficult to understand anthropology. As I told you, we are packaging our everyday lives into academic lessons. And also at the same time, anthropology is easy to understand irrespective of your academic background. How many of you are from engineering background? Raise your hands. Life sciences? Social sciences? Medical sciences? Life sciences you must have. What are the others? You have not raised your hand for anything? Your academic background? Engineering. You? Yeah. What is your political science? So some of you are social sciences, some of you are engineering, some of you are life sciences, medicine, dentists, chartered accountants, history, economics, many people. But there's virtually every discipline in anthropology. In fact, many of the founders of anthropology are not anthropologists, obviously. But some of them are PhD in mathematics and physics, philosophers, and psychologists. Even Sigmund Freud is the one who started something called psychological anthropology. So there's virtually every discipline in anthropology. You don't have to be academically qualified. In fact, not many universities are actually offering it. That's where your advantage lies. There's a level playing field. It's agnostic to your academic background. Agnostic means it's neutral to everything. It doesn't matter what your academic background is. And you're not escaping these concepts by not taking anthropology. Yeah, one question people have is, I don't have biology background, can I handle physical? The amount of biology you need to learn to clear your prelims is more than what you need to know when you have to understand anthro. And that's the reason, that's where Mr. Vinoy will come in, because he is also teaching genetics and other aspects of science and technology in general studies. And that's where it is actually scoring. It's a very objective discipline. You can write your answers in points and bullets. You can write your answers in bullets and points. In fact, that's what I keep advising students. Don't write verbose sentences. You can embellish your answers with illustrations and flowcharts and diagrams. You don't have to be a Pablo Picasso or whatever. Stick drawings or whatever, wherever required, not very many places. And there's a proper structure to the way you study, proper structure to revise, proper structure to write. That's it. That's where anthropology has this advantage. There's a level playing field and easy answer writing. And the most important thing about anthropology is its interface with general studies. These are not my anthropology topics. These are your GS topics. Every single topic. I am showing you this in the end is because I didn't want to sound boastful. You saw the syllabus. You can see the overlap. And I close to 200 marks, 180, 200, 235 marks in general studies and general essay exclusively can be written with anthropology as one of your as your subject. And much of this, and anthropology provides you with the critical understanding, the critical thinking you require to understand GS, to understand your current affairs, and to understand your general essay. You don't have to specially study these topics. You're saving a lot of time because we are doing it even more intensively and exploring it through an anthropological lens, which you will not do in GS. And trust me when I tell you this. You can take anthropology to GS. You can't bring GS answers to anthro. One of the problems is people end up writing GS answers. You are not supposed to. Anthropology is a holistic, historical, and a comparative science. You need to bring those dimensions into it. And that's exactly what civil service demands, whether it's in your GS paper, general essay, or even your personality test. That's where anthropology has that unique advantage. And much of this syllabus, like including internal security issues, is something that, unprecedented. Name one discipline where all these topics are studied under one umbrella. One optional subject where all these topics are packaged into one subject. There's none. So that's where you will be hitting multiple birds with one stone. And this interdisciplinary perspective that anthropology teaches you is exactly what UPSC demands. Clarity of thought, range of application, and the power of expression, the holy trinity of civil service exam. Clarity of thought is our job. Range of application, that's how anthropology is, holistic discipline. And the power of expression, which you naturally develop if your thought is clear. That comes with writing practice. These are the places where anthropology has an edge. It has been very scoring. Mr. Vinoy will share the scores of some of the students this year. And despite the fact that the exams are getting tougher and tougher, yes, you have to have a cutting edge in order to clear this exam. You need to be a smart worker, not necessarily a hard worker. There's no point in waiting for that one good year where you can take the exam. You have to go, prepare yourself and take a plunge. And it takes too much to know how little we know. The more we study, the more we realize that there is very little we have known so far. So it's an ocean, civil services. Choose an optional. I'm not here to baptize you into anthro, okay? That's not my intention. But choose an optional that will only complement your study. It should not complicate your study. And you should enjoy the journey. The journey is as important as the destination. You're literally marrying your subjects, and you have to choose your partner very carefully. Is because you should not feel, Abba, you have to go listen to that boring lecture of Dr. Karthik. No, it shouldn't be that way. It's not me, it's not the discipline. It is essentially, the subject itself that should inspire that confidence in you, inspire that endeavor in you. Don't let it be a punishment. So choose wisely, whatever you choose. All the best, irrespective of whatever you choose. But still, that's exactly what an optional choice should help you. And we follow a method, as I told you, which is our own, tailor-made, time-tested for more than 3 decades. So don't bother about it. You're not our guinea pigs. And this methodology is crafted keeping the exam and the changing needs and demands of the exam. No 2 years are the same. Okay? Just because 1 year it comes tough doesn't mean tough is not absolute. It's relative. It all depends on the level of preparation. It all depends also on the number of years that you have put in, not only as a student, but also as a faculty and your practice. And let me give you a bird's eye view. I'm coming to your questions in the end because I'm sure I must have answered some of your questions already. And our batch is starting in June. We take about 6 months, minimum 6.5 months, is because that's the level of preparation this exam requires. And we discuss every single topic intensively, in depth. And when we teach a subject to you, it's not just keeping the optional in mind, but also the demands of your UPSC general studies. We also try to relate the current affairs to your existing classes and make sure that it will also enormously help you in your general essay. So we don't confine ourselves only to Anthro. Anthro is there everywhere. You will realize it soon. And then 2.5 hours, like any other slot in Vajiram and Ravi, and starts off with 5 days, may go to 6 days a week. You will have regular class tests, at least about 22, 23 tests you will be writing. There will be comprehensive papers in paper 1 and paper 2 after the syllabus is over. You will be given carefully crafted, comprehensive, elaborate 6 volumes of textbooks in anthropology. They are your reference books. They are your value-added material. In addition to the class notes I keep giving to students, so that many of the students don't touch those books, hoping that class notes will do. It won't do. You should also read those because a lot of effort has gone into it. With more than 2,000 books as references, they keep changing regularly. In addition to that, you will be getting a lot of digital handouts, which are PDFs in your student portal. And then we also have a faculty managed Telegram group where all the 3 faculty, we will give current affairs, newspaper articles which may be relevant to you, even in your GS with anthropological interface, which we will discuss in the class the next day or whatever. And in addition to that, you will, let me also tell you the post completion hand-holding we provide. Our job is not going to end with the classes. It's actually going to begin with them. And you will continue to have access to our student portal. You will continue to keep getting your handouts for 2 years, or I don't know when it is. Even long after that, you continue to be in touch with us on email. We'll keep hand-holding you. We are here every day. You can contact us through email. You can meet us personally. We can fix a time mutually convenient. And then if in case we don't exactly know the slot, still there is little time. The reason we are restricting it to 2 batches is because we think that 2 intensive batches are required, so that 6.5 months each is where we focus on comprehensive teaching, foundations, grounding, answer practice, tests, and everything else, so that you'll have sufficient time for you to revise at least twice before your actual exam. And once your prelims results are out, you clear the prelims, you can join Vajiram test series in Anthro free of cost. Your students of Vajiram optional, Anthro don't have to pay. I don't know how much is the fee, but it's quite expensive normally for others. It's free of cost for you. And at the same time, you still want to have some kind of questions that you think I have not answered, you can contact me on my email ID. I'm leaving my email ID with you. karthik.anthro@gmail. My name is Karthik Godavarthi. You can check my blog. I have written some blogs on anthropology as an optional, karthik.guru. Or I have my YouTube channel and Vajiram's YouTube channel, where we have done quite a few videos on anthropology as an optional subject. So go through them also, it will give you an idea. Can I answer this? Yeah, come down. You couldn't come because of the rain, I knew. Science of humanity, study of humans, okay. How to handle technical jargon? See, there's always a first time. Satvik, is it? Anthropos and logos. Did you understand the meaning of the word today? Yeah? Did you know the meaning of the word anthropos and logos before today? Homo sapien. You understood the meaning? See, it's always a first time, Satvik. And we are here to help you. The best way to learn a word is to know its etymology. Etymology is the science of words. Mr. Vinay will talk about Australopithecus. Australis means south. Pithecus means an ape. See, half of the sciences are either Greek or Latin. And that's the reason why all those words emanated, right? So don't worry about it. And once you learn something and its meaning, you will never forget it for the rest of your lifetime. Trust me. And it becomes a habit, actually. It becomes an annoying habit that the people around you may actually start telling you, "Arey baap, bahut ho gaya." Don't, because you get into that mode. When you hear the word for the first time, you may wonder what is the etymology of the word. If you learn the etymology, you will never forget it. And we are here to help you navigate through that process. And you're not escaping jargon. It's there in every discipline. Some of you are engineering. Half the words you must be talking about, I may not understand. Right? I didn't even know the difference between a compass and a divider until the time a friend of mine stabbed me with one of them in school. So don't worry about it. And I can't answer that question, sociology or anthropology, which is more scoring. Please go to the public domain. I told you, I'm not marketing nor baptizing you into anthro. Take an informed decision based on today's interaction, and I'm sure you will be able to make a smart decision. Pick up a subject which is engaging, less demanding, taxing, time saving, and interfacing with general studies. And it should not expect much from you. Everything should, I think, see, you have a lot of work to do. And don't let the discipline add more to it. It should, wherever possible, help you complement or supplement the efforts you are putting in other papers. It should not add an insult to the injury. It's taxing. This is the toughest examination in the world. You're competing with the best brains in the country, and you have to prove that you're one of them. and choose, when Arjuna had a quiver full of arrows, Dronacharya taught him how to shoot an arrow. But he didn't teach him which particular arrow he has to pick up to fight what kind of an enemy. We will give you a quiver full of arrows. We are not Dronacharyas, but you are our Arjunas. There are some Ekalavyas also, online students. So, distance learning. But you're all equally poised. Don't worry about it. Can you scroll down? I just answered that question. Chiranjeevi Guru. Current affairs. Anthropology is equally poised. There's static and dynamic areas. But that should be our headache, not yours. So our handouts, our Telegram channel, and all that. As I told you, after some time, even parliamentary debates, you will find a lot of anthropology there. You will be on an autopilot. Then you will come and ask me, isn't this relevant? And you will send me cuttings. Sir, I saw this in the newspaper. I think it's useful for that chapter. In fact, you will start actually pooling the current affairs and helping each other after some time. There are many articles my students share with me, which I keep posting for you people. In that way, you will start seeing anthro everywhere. Everything is a current affair. The human species is a living, thriving species, right? And every time we breathe, it's a current affair. Something or the other. And we can't escape it. There's a perfect balance between both. And you can't answer current affairs without knowing the theory. And look at the anthropology papers. There's an obsession, a wrong obsession with case studies or whatever, concepts. You have to be thorough in your basic concepts and methods. And only then you will be able to relate to the current affairs. An example or a case study is used to support the concept, not the other way around. And that's where a whole generation of students, got sidetracked, which is wrong, because the basic concepts are what being targeted in this exam. And to understand the basics, is very difficult, right? Definitely, we will also become anthropologists in 6 months. You will become much more than me. The best thing is I did my PhD without Google. You have ChatGPT. There are some people who fact check us online, live. Terminology is hundreds, let there be 1,000. Don't worry. Don't look at the syllabus. Look at that syllabus and you will have the last laugh after the syllabus is over. Diagrams, as I told you, Mr. Vinoy will also explain to you the role of, they are not diagrams as in some illustrations, and it is not difficult. Okay? Any questions from you people? Sure. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Based on what you actually explained about anthropology, questions come. First is based on how anthropology has grown as a subject over here, even if there's an anthropological survey of India, as you mentioned.
Anthropological Survey of India actually dates back to pre-independence time. It used to be the part of Zoological Survey of India with its headquarters in Varanasi. And in 1945, it got shifted to Kolkata. And it got separated from, and anthropology hasn't grown. Over the years, it has become, people have realized the importance of anthropology in India. But there's still certain domains where India is yet to reach, like paleontology. We don't have a great many research institutes. India must be home to human evolution also. And we have one odd fossil we could find. And Indian soil also is pretty acidic, and much of development has happened and must have gone, right? But anthropology is a much happening discipline. We are there we have been involved in planning commission in United Nations, globally, the world over. There's something called corporate anthropology. Some of my friends and juniors are working for companies like Microsoft, Google. I consulted with Microsoft, Deloitte and all. I'm also a filmmaker, corporate films. And we use it for marketing pitches.
No, my question was about the fact that this is such a huge area of discipline and is growing day by day. How relevant
How relevant?
Is structuralism right now.
Structuralism.
Right, they went to the fact that emperors are grown too much.
See, the world has come much beyond structuralism. The French school of structuralism is redundant. When it went into the British hands, we entered the domain of post-structuralism, Edmund Leach and all that. But today we are living in a postmodern philosophical current where we are questioning the validity of truth, a single truth. Only this morning I was giving a lecture on something called logocentrism. I just told you anthropos and logos. Logos is essentially logia, the belief in one centralized truth. So today the world is riding on the postmodern philosophy, where it's a culmination of ideas. And anthropology is a beautiful example where everything starting the 19th century classical evolutionism to postmodernism is well integrated. And even if you look at the faculty with whom I keep interacting in academic domain, there are different traditions that are followed in our own country. I am an alumnus of University of Hyderabad, where I typically feel the British traditions of anthropology followed. Some universities like private universities, American traditions. So structuralism, the concept of an underlying meaning to everything that the humans do is definitely correct. Because humans are not illogical, irrational creatures. So there's a structure to every aspect of human behavior. But what exactly is that structure? There is a conflict of opinion. And that is where the whole idea of your approaches to the study of culture, psychological anthropology comes in. And how much of this meaning is something that anthropology captures is another big debate. If you are a student of social sciences, since you're talking about structuralism, the whole debate between ethic and emic perspectives, phenomenology, ethnography, all these are important. Jargon, guys. Don't worry about what I'm discussing with him, because he just took up an important school of thought. And structuralism is not unique to anthropology, right? It began in linguistics, especially the Praha school of linguistics, Ferdinand de Saussure, Lang and Parole. Yeah. I made a short video about this in my YouTube channel. Maybe it may interest you. Okay. We have interactive. And in fact, I want to tell you that online is as interactive as offline. In fact, if you notice much of I was focusing, I may not be looking at the camera like this because the camera is here, the screen is here. So I was looking at you people's faces, or whatever little faces I can see, but your text, then I'm looking at the people here. So it's as interactive, as live, interactive, and immersive as offline. So it doesn't matter whether you're online or offline. Okay? You're not Ekalavyas, you're also Arjunas. Okay. So thank you so very much. Pleasure meeting you all. God bless you. All the very best. And Mr. Vinay will take over. Thank you so much. Any questions you have, do mail me. Yeah, and I'm here 7:30 to 10 in the morning in 9B. You want to meet me in this whole week, I will be here. Mail me a day before. You can also meet me personally. Likewise, Mr. Vinoy. Okay? Yep. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Namaste, Bachcho. Audible? All right. Okay, so you've almost had an exhaustive discussion. I'll keep it short with respect to the syllabus covering. I'll just give you a quick bird's eye view, and I'll rather work more on how to approach the subject and what are the kind of merits associated. The biggest question that comes, I think by now you know that I'll be responsible for handling your physical anthropology. The biggest question that the people generally have, or the doubt I would say, is the subject background that you come from, right? So the biology and what details of the biology would you like to or would you want to study in this? Let me start with a very simple question. How many of you have not studied biology till 10th standard? I don't think there is a single person who falls in that category. This is the base you require to start. Many a times to come with a blank slate allows the teacher a good opportunity to create the structure as the teacher has seen the demand of the examination evolving. So nothing more than the background of the 10th standard biology. I don't mean that you should have remembered every bit from that 10th standard. I mean the sense of comfort that I have studied that subject. Because when we look into the syllabus of the physical anthropology, despite the fact that UPSC has chosen not to ask questions from those particular regions, but you see they have structured their syllabus from the very fundamental, the cell. And I think that is the first thing you teach the students when they start learning life sciences in their primary school. Like, what is a cell? Generally, I start with this question in all my science classes also, only to confuse the people when they say the structural and functional unit of life, and then I say that I meant the prison cell, or then the cell phone cell. Such generic term this. Just a moment back when I entered the room, sir was talking about, and someone had asked the question about the technical jargons, and a very beautiful explanation what sir gave is that you have, and let this be a principle overall also when you have to learn getting better at communication, because one thing goes for sure, whatever your field of choice, the people with better ability to communicate things are the ones who necessarily become more successful. So whenever you get an opportunity to learn a subject, for some of the subject specific vocabulary or the ways of presentation, they act as the big force multipliers through which you will start looking at the world, different events and the phenomena in much better way. So when we say cell does not mean a structural and functional unit of life. It simply means an enclosure which can undergo the regulated exchange of matter and energy with the outside world. The moment you say that the prison cell is as much a cell as the living cell, as the cell phone cell, it is nothing but an enclosure. But the fact remains, when we are talking about physical anthropology, we will start with the biological cell, which we know that it is the fundamental building block of life. Everything that you see around and you call it as living, at the very basis of it is made up of cell only. So the syllabus starts with what is a cell, and the content of it is something, in the primary or the middle school level content, wherein you have to understand what is cell, made up of lipid, what are the components inside, the mitochondria, the nucleus. I think the most remembered thing of the entire world education is mitochondria is also known as powerhouse of the cell. And when you make a group of 1,000, 10,000 people sit and ask this question, there will be such symphony in the way they answer, as if they have been made to rehearse that and then answer that question. I mean, it has become a part of your DNA. So you study the cell, the components of the cell, the mitochondria, nucleus, absolute basic definition of what they are and what major function do they perform for a cell. The reason why the cell has to be called as the unit of life. Anyone who knows why is it called as the unit of life? Why is cell called as the unit of life? No. Because cell is called as the unit of life because cell is the smallest entity that does everything that you associate living organisms with. What could that be? Reproduction, growth, metabolism, response to stimuli, all of it. And interestingly, if you separate all of these characteristics and look for the examples, you'll find many. When you look for the response to stimuli, I think this is a good example. You touch, it responds, you talk to it, it responds, but it is not living. Or the mountains grow, but they are not living. The viruses reproduce, but they are not declared as particularly living organisms. They are at the cusp of living and the non-living. So what is that cardinal thing that should be there to be called as living? There is nothing. It is the package that is called as living. And the cell is the smallest such package which is capable of doing every bit. And that is why the functional unit of life. So we start with there. Now for any structure, any physical entity to be present and be functional, There has to be a blueprint, a software. And that software is what immediately in the syllabus, after having understood the cell in its entirety, we get into. And what is that software or the blueprint called as? The genetic material. Or for that matter, if I ask you, which is the oldest history book ever written? And interestingly, despite being the oldest, it is the most updated history book. And that is our genome. If you look at the information provided within our genetic material, I believe you are all acquainted with the basic terms called DNA, RNA, something that we'll be studying anyway. But they are nothing but the storage of information of the plan of what that particular organism or the cell is going to be like. So we straight away come to the genetic material. What are the methods by which the information gets stored in it? And these are all very fundamental levels. Some things that you may find easily to be covered within the NCERT textbook. So I am talking about what fraction of it is biology that generally many a times those who have not walked this path have a bit of anxiety. How much of biology do we need to know? So having understood this, we then go into how is this information passed on from one generation to another? Because we have been using in the normal figurative language, in the English expressions, like father, like son. The statements, the apple does not fall far from the tree. People, these are loaded scientific statements, which is to say that an organism inherits the same information from the parents and kind of copies the characters that the parents had. And what do you call it? Inheritance. So what are the principles followed? What are the rules followed? And I'm sure all of you have heard about the great person who decoded this in the most objective manner for the first time, although he did not give everything. But yes, Gregor Mendel. And I'm sure in your school days you have studied this. So you can see we are still at the school level. We have not gone beyond 10th standard. So Mendel and his famous experiments with the pea plants, and there are reasons why he took pea. Other than his conscious selection, he also happened to be lucky fellow. So you need to be be lucky. So lucky that he chose the pea plant, which gave him the beautiful expression of ideas, and merely on the basis of observation power, he could give those laws which even a century later the modern discoveries in the genetics proved to be absolutely bang on correct. So we'll study Mendel, and by studying Mendel we will try to understand that the things are objectively, discretely heritable. But the moment we get into that, we will have a tendency of having genetic determinism in our approach. The idea that the things are all predetermined. Sab pehle se likha hua hai ji. That statement. And that's the reason why people, unfortunately, when more and more of genes started getting to be studied and genetic material and their role, we misconstrued the meaning. And we even started associating the undesirable behavior like criminality, like promiscuity, all of these ills of the society as something which is heritable. And that was used to become more discriminatory in our approach, and that gave birth to the concept of race and racism. That a particular group is born superior or born inferior. But the most interesting thing is, through that route, not only would we learn that how this genetic determinism takes us to that, but we will also learn how it has been misconstrued, and the very same thing, not genetic determinism, but the knowledge of genetics helps us to defeat the entire ground of racism and understand that the entire concept of race is fallacious and there is no point holding on to that. And that is why there is a particular moon mission that's going to happen if everything goes good, the 1st of April, that's tomorrow itself. Artemis 2, I'm sure you've heard about. And US, having the whole baggage of the history of racism, is trying to symbolically undo that by saying that, okay, we'll be taking the first black man, African colored man to the space. Although the fellow himself is not very comfortable with that. And he has, vocally spoken about it. But he has said that, okay, so be it, if in case it is serving a symbolic purpose. So we will study that. I mean, it will be an interesting discussion. And then I will also be teaching you, or we will also be learning in the syllabus, what are the tools through which we may deconstruct. I mean, louder, thoda sa volume badha sakte, because I thought it was loud enough. So how to deconstruct? How much part of you is inherited from your parents and what part of you is controlled by the environment? And there's a very popular debate that you call as nature versus nurture. What is already a part of you and what part of you is the result of the environment that you live in. And what we will learn, that most of the aspects about humans are too complex to be discretely or proportionately separated into 40% genetics, 60% environment, vice versa, or whatever. They are so complex in the interplay that it is better to understand it as multifactorial rather than either genetic or environment. Very interesting studies that will be used to study that is someone's good mathematical skill is because the papa had great mathematical skill? Is your ability to laugh at a joke or not to something that you have inherited as a character? Is a person's vulnerability to take up smoking or drinking as a habit, irritability as the nature, is it genetic? That is a very controversial part of the genetics, human genetics as you call it, called as behavioral genetics. So we will enter into how we deconstruct and how we use it for constructive purposes. So the cell, the genes, the inheritance, and then applying that on the humans, and then finding that humans are a complex setup where environment and genes in different degrees, they keep interacting in different ways. And then we will see that if it is so predictable that parent like father like son, then why do we see so much of diversity? So we will see there keep happening some errors in the notes. If you take some classmate's note and you copy, inadvertently you will make some errors. And if someone copies from you, that fellow would also make some errors. And if the sequence goes on, if I meet the 20th person and match up with the first person's note, we will find there is a gross difference. This is exactly what happens in nature also. And that is why what we see amongst us is diversity, variations. You look into any feature of yours, look at your nose. Even if you are all following the same grand pattern of having the nose with two nostrils connected to the lung through trachea, but if you look around, no two people will have the same structure of nose. Sabhi ki naak alag alag hai. Or for that matter, you take it to any physical feature, physiological, your functional, heart, lung, liver, kidney, your behavioral, everything is variable. And the moment there is variety, some variety would be, some variant, will be more suited to an environment and some not so suited to the environment, and that allows something to happen. And what is that? Evolution to happen. So we take the entire learning that we make here into understanding one of the most universal of all concept, evolution. There is nothing physical, non-physical. Your thought process, you yourself, your dress, your language, everything evolves. There is nothing which does not. And then the most, I would say, prominent or pronounced example of evolution that you can see in your life, because there is one particular question you might have observed that the people ask, if the evolution is happening, why don't we see it happening? Anyone who would like to take this question? It's excruciatingly slow a process, fine, one. But then you just have to have the eyes to see it. One of the best example of evolution right in front of you happening all the time is the antibiotic resistance that happens in the bacteria. There comes an antibiotic in the market, and when the penicillin got discovered, I believe you have heard about penicillin, Alexander Fleming, he discovered it. That was the time when it was considered as a miracle drug. People from the deathbed rose up like anything. And then the medical community declared the chapter of communicable disease, it's time to close. If only they knew that is something called as evolution, and then came up antibiotic resistance. So you come out with the antibiotics, they come out with the resistance. And this is the most visible and speedy manifestation of evolution, if at all someone does not believe in that theory and wishes to have a look at. So we'll understand how in the evolution as a topic, we would evolve from the understanding of Plato and Aristotle. That's not a part of the physical anthropology as such. So you just have to have a passing reference that, okay, they talked about that everything has been created as such spontaneously, separately, and they are perfect. From there we will move to all these people who made attempts, some incomplete, some imperfect, like Lamarck. I believe you might have heard about another school days evolution chapter that you might have studied. It will be just a revision of that with slight improvement over it. And then the biggest trendsetter, Darwin, and how the Darwinian understanding of organic evolution changed the world of observing the life altogether. The day he gave that theory of organic evolution, he became an overnight celebrity and a villain at the same time, because his theory was a complete antithesis to the creationist school of thought, that the things have been created by the will of God. He brought the asking of questions in science as to why this has happened, why the neck of the giraffe has become longer, why the snakes have lost the limbs, why maybe your little fingers might be evolving because you are using it to hold your mobile phone and it is getting a bit curvaceous to allow a better fixation of it. So there has to be an explanation for it. And then his theory is another one which we will learn how it has been misconstrued and misapplied, because Darwinism has been used by many saying survival of the fittest, so killing is justified, which it has never said it. We will study that detail. And then we will study that Darwin, like many other greats like Galileo, Copernicus, Newton, Alfred Wegener, all of these greats people, they were so ahead of the time that whatever they proposed by their wisdom and great observation skill, they could not prove through the scientific experiments because they are so ahead of the time. Such was the case with Darwin also. So his theory also had unanswered questions. Not to prove his theory wrong, but just that they were not answered. Because Darwin gave the theory of evolution based on variations. It exists in the population. He could never explain what created the variations in the first place. But that we will learn. The mutations, I told you already, I have given you the hint of it if you noted. When you copy the notes, you make errors. And you don't intentionally do that. And you cannot predict where would the error be. And those are called as mutations in the software or the genetic material. So we'll study how the Darwinism got evolved into, yes, Neo-Darwinism. And what allowed the Neo-Darwinism? All the modern science of genes, the mutations, the genomics, which is a very popular term that you study in your GS as well, and something from which for the next few years you can always expect questions. Very important. Genomics plus AI, because you are generating a lot of data, you require the data analysis, which is not very much possible through the labor of the human mind. So Neo-Darwinism, how the Darwin as a theory got evolved, And what is the understanding of evolution that we hold today? Having understood that, since it is anthropology, obviously, we will apply all that knowledge on the class mammal order primates. I'm sure you have learned in your, again, middle school, the organism classification, vertebrates, invertebrates. पढ़ना नहीं है ये सब, मैं ऐसे ही बता रहा हूँ. And उसमें आपने पढ़ा है class mammal. Mammal के अंदर में there is a group called order primate. And primate के अंदर आता है humans, which includes the monkeys, the apes, and the humans. And we will apply all that we have learned in the Darwinian understanding and the neo-Darwinism as to how in the primates we have had evolution from the prosimians to the new old world monkeys, and then to the apes, and then to the hominins, as we call it. Hominins are the lines in which the human or Homo sapiens, also called as anatomically modern humans, fall. Sir was taking the name of Australopithecus. The reason why Australia, you call it by that name because it's in south. Pithecus is for ape. So those apes which were discovered in south of Africa, they are called as Australopithecus. So we'll study, Pithecus is ape. So we will study the entire route of evolution, what all changes happened, how did we become the supreme most of the entire biological world, at least that is what we understand. But no doubt, undebatably, we are best at exploiting the resources. What has caused it? Has it been in jerks? Has it been gradual? This is what that is going to be a part of it. Very interesting part of the study, this, which we come generally at last. Other than this, we apply whatever that we have studied into some very general area, people, like growth and development. So all the principles, that basics we have covered so far, will be utilized to study the human growth and development, how we divide the entire human growth into different phases, prenatal and postnatal. And then in the postnatal, we divide into further stages: infant, child, adolescent, young, adult, and then senescence. And what factors contribute to it? Is it genetic? Your body type maybe? Is it environmental? Is it nutritional? Is it training? All of these factors. And having studied that, we would try to find out a rule of remaining or having eternal youth. How to remain young always. There have been studies, people. There are 5 so-called longevity hotspots in the world. Costa Rica, Sardinia, where people generally live to be more than 100. And there have been researches to find out what are the common elements that we can take as an LCM and see if these are the factors they are having a longer life. So that would be an interesting discussion, wherein we study the biological age and the chronological age. Biological is how much age you appear to have based on your biological features. Your muscle tonicity, your bone mineralization, demineralization, your vessel's elasticity, how long can you run without panting heavily? These could be the markers of your biological age. Chronological is how many birthday cakes have you cut. And then not all the people have these two going together. Some age much faster. Have you seen this movie Pa? Which is rather a disease condition. Progeria is the disease called, wherein Amitabh Bachchan beautifully played the role of a small little kid who undergoes accelerated aging. That's a typical case of how your biological age may be much more than what your chronological age is. But that's an aberration. In the normal also, we'll find different people who can defy their age so beautifully. So that will be a part of the study. We will then enter into the applied area of anthropology, or physical anthropology rather. as to how all the knowledge that we will build up all through will be useful in nutrition, or what are the different anthropological dimensions of nutrition, the culture, the climate, the globalization. Do you agree with the changed scenario we are living in, and the real world, and getting bombarded with all the videos who are constantly telling you that these are the wonder foods, even if they are grown 10,000 kilometers away, just because the fruit preservation technology has become better and is made available to you as fresh as in the farm, and because it has been glorified, you are ready to shell out 10 times more amount of money, maybe for the same nutrition mix. It's part of nutrition anthropology. We'll study how anthropology plays a big role in sports, every aspect of it, right from choosing the right sport. In many of the countries, the parents are so conscious that they get their kids genetically screened and get to know whether they have the right genes to pick up a certain sport that the parent wants to, maybe, or just the parent is curious that based on the genetic makeup, what could be the best sport to pick. They go to that detail. What is the role of training? What is the role of your body type in the sport selection? And very importantly, your sporting equipments. I believe you might have seen the special shoes that Usain Bolt has been using. They are particularly designed based on his body type. Simple, not a rocket science in this. There are tactile pads which are pressure sensitive. You are made to walk on it, and then they find out which particular point of your foot did you apply what degree of pressure, and based on that the different padding would be created in it so that you respond better to it. Simple. How to design the swimsuits that allow you better sliding through the water. You remember, I don't know if you have heard of, there used to be a player, Matthew Hayden, of Australia. He used to come with a bat, which used to be a very long handle, and the hitting part was very shortened. That was called as mongoose bat. That became very popular. So how did that fellow get to design that structure? So was it particularly designed for his body type? All of these aspects come under the sports anthropology. And we also look into the defense. Very interesting. Your uniform design, your arms designs, your gun turrets of the tanks, all of it are properly designed based on the body type they have to serve. All these guns, they take the hand span measurement of the hand, and then they decide whether it is meant for which particular race, and based on what proportion the fingers, the thumb, the palm they have, they will have better ease at using that gun. Part of the defense anthropology. DRDO has been doing wonderfully well in this area. The designing of the helmets, the dress for the new recruits, all of it. And the same is what that is getting applied when all these apparel brands, they come to India and then they open their store, because Indian race has got different body proportion. How do they make the sizes of certain categories, and some or the other fit so well for you, as if it has been personally designed for you. This is anthropological research, people. Taking suitable number of samples, reducing the particular population group into right body proportions, and converting it into the best of those who do best. In this research, they have better product consumer satisfaction. And then another extremely important area, the forensic anthropology. Immense application. When we try to study the fossils and their evolution, by extracting their DNA, we can find out their characteristics. For a part of the anthropology people, when the DNA science was not that developed, it was largely dependent upon the fossil records. But the things turned magically when the DNA study came. And that is why when it comes to where did the modern humans originate, the white supremacist ideology always tried to propose and forcefully advocate that the Caucasoid race is the origin of the modern humans. but thanks to the mitochondrial DNA, Y chromosome DNA, we'll study all of it. We have been able to confirm the out of Africa theory of the modern humans. So it's very useful in that. You see, in the present war that is going on, there are people getting killed in great numbers. How would their identity be derived if the body is badly disfigured, charred beyond recognition? You follow forensic anthropology. In the overall security at the various places, government offices, the airports, forensic anthropology. So another extremely important area. Largely labbal hua ab yahi hai. This is what largely we have to study. Let me preempt some of the questions which I saw was asked earlier also, before I take more. How much of the diagrams I saw, there are some people who had asked it? Not much. If I ask you, what have I drawn? A human. बहुत दिल करेगा कि मैं अपने आंसर को थोड़ा सा दूसरा दिखाना चाहता हूं. Chimpanzee. Simple as that. You would not require what generally, with respect to the biology and the fear that we create in it, the kind of diagram drawing skills that you require. Not a bit. Another question. Dynamism. Bachcho, dynamism is itself a very dynamic word, should be interpreted properly. दो level पे होता है dynamism. One wherein if you are looking at some government report which is published annually, biannually or something, and that is a part of a syllabus, you need to be updated. But there are some, aspects. For example, let us say if there is some news on airport security taken up by the government of India, even if this news belongs to this year, it will be equally relevant 2 years later. These are random dynamism, which you will not require to keep updating all the time. This part will be much lesser. Physical anthropology, once you have prepared grossly and you have been just careful about picking the right examples from the current relevance so that your answer has that current, feature, more than sufficient. You will not require every year to add, features into it. Let me give you some general principles of how you can facilitate your choice making for any optional. First thing that you should look for is how objective is that syllabus. By objective you mean the syllabus terms should be clearly mentioned. What does that mean? It means there is less or no scope for shockers. If there are subjects wherein the syllabus leaves a lot to be read between the lines, it will always keep you anxious for some new things, because the people who set the questions are academicians who will always be able to think the new things which are not present in the syllabus. That's one. Another, of course, we have discussed dynamism. I believe most of it falls under this. Which means, people, if you are not very much in the load of annual update of it, going very practically, not everyone clears in the very first attempt. In case you don't, in that case, those subjects will be much more rewarding if they don't require you to revise a lot of content. Why? Because these subjects will start giving you incremental return. For that work, you just adding one more layer onto it, and you are just getting better in your chances. Third, overlap with the GS. Let me show you the questions. One good satisfaction that as a teacher I get by teaching few things in the science and technology vis-a-vis anthropology, this way or that way we are able to predict the questions, or at least what's covered in the class is something that gets reflected as such in the exam. Have a look. Let me quickly scroll through the prelims questions. 25, there were two questions directly from the genetics part and the DNA technology, which are both a part of the syllabus. Again, 2023, the 24, there was no prelims question. Genetic polymorphism, the variations that I talked about is straight asked in this exam. Another thing, the genome and the genomics, there was a straight question from there. This is a simple question. I would not claim this to be a part of anthropology, and hence it comes. I mean, this is too common to be asked, cell and the knowledge. Anyway, we study that, but yeah, basic genetics, hereditary disease. Again, 2021, pedigree analysis is a chapter that we study, how the inheritance is determined. Again, genetic polymorphism and genome study question getting asked. Every year, rarely, like 24, I told you, they had asked, the different areas. This is from DNA technology. 2020, hardly there goes a year without the question getting asked. Let me show you the mains. I've just added the syllabus unit from where this gets asked. Genetic screening is a topic that we study. So DNA testing 2024, there was a question regarding the different aspects of it. We cover it in the topic. This is again biotechnology, the applications of DNA technology we cover in that anthropology part. Do you remember I talked about the growth and development, I talked about aging and life, straight away copied from there. 2022. 2021 again applied biotechnology, a part of our discussion. So this is something that is without fail going to reward you some or the other stage. In addition to the socio-cultural part and the Indian anthropology that sir has already talked about. Let me give you one more aspect about it. When I was talking about the syllabus being objective, see what benefit it offers you. These are the different areas that we cover, and without bothering to get into the details of what are the requirement of the question, which anyway you learn, by the same color coding I have told you the chances of it getting repeated. This is the benefit of the syllabus getting defined objectively, clear cut. You always have the advantage of predicting which areas are going to be asked in what frequency. Can you see? Same colors are the repeated questions. Every segment of it you will have the question getting repeated. Sometimes consecutive years में भी repeat देखने को मिलता है. So that I would say is a huge advantage that one has to capitalize on. हर एक साल में दिखेगा. Soumya, we had covered it in the class. Don't you worry. So this is one aspect of the entire thing. People, any optional paper is two things. One, an academic discipline. And another, a tool to clear CSC. Never make the mistake of ignoring one for the other. Both are equally important. Ensure that what tool you select should be, one, the Swiss knife, offering you multiple advantages. And another, always remember whatever optional you take up to prepare for the exam, give it the due respect of an academic discipline. Let me be very blunt. Any optional paper, we have a bit of over-ambitious attitude at looking at it. What is our demand from that paper? We will study it for 6 months, 7 months, and we would be able to learn that subject so beautifully well that we are drafting answers that someone who has lived that subject for decades will look at the answer and say, wow. So 6 महीने पढ़ के हमें वो status हासिल करना है not going to be an easy unless you give it the respect and put that strategic conscious extra effort to get to that level. So what do I expect and I put into that attempt or effort of students in my classes? One, of course, the lecture wherein we understand every topic in thorough detail along with the class notes. I don't leave much option for you to do a lot of field work. Next, in the class itself, I generate many new questions and I expect the people to keep attempting it however poor their answer writing skill at the beginning may be. I sit after the classes, however long a time period it takes, to evaluate the paper and keep giving my inputs on a regular basis. तो अब आपके पास उस सब्जेक्ट को एक ग्रेजुएशन एंड पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन की तरह 5 साल पढ़ने की आजादी नहीं है. So you have to put that conscious effort. Whatever you are learning to write answers. So get directly into that mode. People, there are few topics initially, if someone requires, we also conduct Zoom sessions for doubt clearance. And I think sir must have already told you that we keep attaching the documents and the handouts to the portal, and there is a Telegram group as well. Beyond that, an aspirant's own motivation has to take off. समझ में आ रही है बात? कोई सवाल, कोई शक हो तो पूछो. Rule of diagrams. Shahid, I would suggest the class notes would be much more detailed and updated. I mean, it's an old book, you can keep it for reference, but not suffice the present day's need. Abhi kya ho raha hai? Dekho. There are two kinds of optional subjects. In some where there would be a lot of scope between the mentioned topics, where the examiners may keep creating new questions. In those where the objectivity is high, what the examiners will test your ability to interact or integrate 2 or 3 more topics and then to construct the answer. And that is why what I do is I don't follow the order of the syllabus. The order given in the syllabus is not at all organic. So we hop from a particular unit to the next organically connected part to the next, that anyway constructs the knowledge in an organic manner in your head so that you get properly armed for those integrated answer writing. But as I told you, the effort has to be conscious. It is as simple as you learn the language in 2 ways. Either you are born in the family where that language is spoken. You don't attend any classes for that. That is called as picking up. You pick up the language. And then there is a foreign language, like the one I am speaking. You learn it through conscious effort. Better strategy and conscious effort that you put, faster you learn. So please ensure that never delay whatever you learn in the optional to go to a point wherein you are so good that the answer that you write will get a best mark at the very first attempt itself. You never learn swimming by reading 10 books about it. You learn swimming by reading even just one, and second by jumping in the pool. Make that a habit, and you learn how the answer writing becomes a second part of you. See everything, listen to every particular topic in the class, primarily to get armed to right answer. And that is why I said any optional is one, an academic discipline, give it the respect, cover it. But another, it is a tool to clear CSE. Never lose sight of both at the same time. Okay. Good question. What is the difference between note making and answer writing? Let me explain this, rather expand this, Bhuvaneshwari. There are different categories. One is note making, another is answer writing, the two that you have asked. Let me add more into this. To create a write-up, to write an essay, to write a review, to write a news article, each of the different term mentioned here is an art in itself. And if for each one you will have to be properly scientifically trained to write. Answer writing of all of these is the easiest to do, because answer writing has already given you the free end, sira de rakha hai usne. It has already provided the cue, and that is the question. Please remember, bacho, the question is just an effort of an examiner trying to make a communication with you. Take this as a general principle, optional or GS. Try this and see if you're consciously looking into it, your answer writing skill will certainly get more enhanced. Any question is based on two premises. One, an assumed concept or assumed information. And second, based on that assumption, a specific demand. Forget optional. Look into any question of any part of your syllabus. GS, optional. If you consciously try, you will get better at doing this splitting. What I found whenever I evaluate the answer of some people who write is they forget that assumed information is assumed to be known commonly to each other. And hence investing more time into this is like irritating the examiner. The world's most cruel species for an aspirant of CSE is the person who evaluates your answer. The person has got zero motivation to be good to you. So never imagine that since you have worked so hard, there is someone who will be taking care of it. So slightest of the errors that you make and irritates the examiner, it will have a fallout. So come straight to the demand. If at all the question has been constructed where the assumed is not clearly spelled out, in that case, the questions do require the introduction with you trying to give evidence to the examiner that I have understood the context. And that context becomes the introduction. But that is also not always there. In many of the questions, the context is clearly defined in the question. Given this, answer this. So when the thing has been given, there is no point writing it again. Ye hai answer writing, Bhuvaneshwari. A skill that you have to learn gradually. But as I said, once you jump into the pool, only then does it happen. खुद से नहीं होगा. कितनी भी बातें करूंगा मैं तो आपको बता रहा हूं कि ऐसे स्विम करना है, लेकिन कर नहीं पाओगे. So that is the thumb rule, that start. Even if you don't have the content in your mind initially, take the reference, get to learn the skill of presenting the answer, and then gradually the content will also keep supporting you. ठीक है. शिवम, किस session का recording बच्चे? If this one you're talking about, it will be available. So in case you joined late, so same platform, YouTube पे, it should be made available. ठीक है. तो चलो, take your call and work very hard at any stage if I'm needed. I take science and technology, so those in case who are in the GS classes also, and I've taken their classes would know, otherwise I'm reachable at this vinoy.krishna@gmail.com. Oh, sure, Samajit. लिखो and submit करो. I'll evaluate and revert back for sure. I think और तो नहीं है question? Yeah, thank you Swamijit. ठीक है बच्चों, have your dinner and get back to work.